Welcome to the Geopolitics and Empire podcast. Today we're speaking with Marc Friedrich, who is a German economist, consultant, and best-selling author of numerous publications, together with his colleague Matthias Wake. We'll be talking about the imminent global financial crisis, the sequel to 2008. Thanks for coming on the podcast, Mr. Friedrich.
I'm very glad you're having me. Thank you for the invitation.
Now, you're a best-selling author in Germany, but you do have one book available in English that people can buy on Amazon and I guess elsewhere called The Crash is the Solution. It's an excellent read. You detail the history and cause of the ongoing financial fraud, debt bubble we're living in, including what people can do to prepare. And I highly recommend people from the English-speaking world read your book and follow you online because you do have some unique insights that we don't get from the experts we usually follow in English. In your book, you blame the financial crisis on corrupt politics, politicians, governments, banks, bankers, unlimited spending, money printing. It seems things are really now coming to a head. You've written in your book that many countries that were once booming are running out of steam. There's nowhere for capital to go. Foreign direct investment has declined greatly this year around the world. And in your book and your previous writings, you were pointing out Deutsche Bank as a canary in the coal mine for years, and it looks like the time may have come. You tweeted recently that this kind of news always happens over the weekend. So this past weekend, Deutsche Bank, they're saying they're going to lay off 20,000 people. Managers are heading for the exits, and they're saying after the restructuring, it will be unrecognizable. And some have said it will look like another Lehman Brothers. Meanwhile, gold and cryptocurrencies have recently spiked, which is another sign that things are not going well. So I think we're beginning to feel the strong winds and a little bit of rain starting to fall. It looks very close now. Where are we in the global financial storm? How imminent is it?
Yeah, you read my book. I hear that. We're in the end game. We're in the last quarter of the whole financial storm, and it's just getting bigger and bigger. Because since 2008, since the big financial crisis, we did not solve a single problem. We just printed money. We lowered the interest rates on a record level to nearly negative rates, and we flooded the world with cheap money. And the central banks created one financial bubble after the next one, and now we have the biggest bubble in history. It's the financial markets. It's the government bonds. It's everywhere. It's trillions of dollars to solve the problem, but it didn't solve the problem. It just created a new mess, a bigger bubble. And when this bursts, 2008 will look like a kindergarten party. It will be epic. And we just feel it. We feel it everywhere. We feel it in the politics. In Europe, for example, parties from the left and right side getting stronger and stronger. The elections in May just showed when the European Parliament was elected, and we saw that the mainstream parties lost more and more supporters. And this is a trend which is going on, and they're losing more and more voters in the future as well. And we feel it everywhere in the society. We had the refugee problem in Europe. We have the financial problems. We have the problems with the parties. We have problems everywhere. And now we have a recession on the horizon. And the coming recession will be the trigger for the end game and for the end of the euro and for the end of the financial system as we know it. And Deutsche Bank is just one little example that Lehman 2.0 is possible because the investment banks are not working anymore. The whole financial system is shaking and it's fighting to survive, but it won't survive. It's just a matter of time when the whole thing, the whole shit hits the van.
And well, we'll get to the end game in a little bit, but you mentioned Europe, and that's where you and I are currently located. And I'm not sure if you listen to Real Vision TV. Raoul Paul of Real Vision TV recently tweeted, I think yesterday, a big important alert that there is a lot going on in Europe that feels like it's coming to a head soon, probably even by the end of the summer, that the EU economy is, as you say, in a mild recession. And he says that banks are on the verge of death and can cause a chain reaction, and there's nothing that the European Central Bank can really do. He thinks we're going to start seeing a sense of major crisis later this year, end of summer, early fall. You write in your book that you think the euro is a failed experiment. What are your thoughts? You said you think the EU will crash. I mean, politically, economically, what is your take on the EU? Will the euro crash and then somehow be reborn and continue on, or will that be it for the euro?
I hope not. I hope this artificial monetary experiment will fail and will be buried forever, because in my first book, I already showed and proved that monetary unions between different countries never ever worked. They always failed. For example, the last monetary union in Europe we had was the Lateinische Münzunion. I don't know the English expression, I have to look it up, but it was a monetary union between Switzerland, Belgium, and Greece. And of course, Greece broke all the rules and it went down in the 20s and it was a disaster. And if you look back in history, monetary unions always failed, and so will the euro. And the euro is already fighting for his survival. You just see it everywhere. We broke laws. We printed money. We have a historic low interest rate in Europe. It's 0% for 3 years now, since 2016. And Mario Draghi will be the first ECB president who never raised the interest rates. Never ever. And Lagarde, his successor, she will be fulfilling the plan. She will bury the euro and she will implement all the horrible IMF papers they wrote about decashing, war on cash and interest rates, how to make negative interest rates happening. And she will do horrible things against the people in Europe, financial repression. All these things will come down now in the end game, because the more how can I say it? The more desperate the politicians and the central bankers are, the more the action will be desperate. So we will see things we couldn't imagine for now, but we will see negative interest rates in the Eurozone. We will see new taxes. We will see financial repression against everybody in Europe. And we will see the collapse of the monetary union from the euro. This artificial system will fail. And you don't forget, we see the biggest central bank experiment in history. We've never seen something like that. Never ever. They printed more money. Never ever. We had so low interest rates, and now we get to the negative interest rates, because Draghi already said with the recession on the horizon, I'm ready for everything. I will do TLTRO, another quantitative easing program for the banks. I will lower rates if it's necessary. But hey, we're already at 0%. Where do you want to go? So he wants to go to the negative interest rates, and this is what's going to happen. And we expected in our third book, we said we expect between -4% and -7% for the Eurozone, so it can survive. And 2 years later, a little American bank came out with the same result. They said it will be between -5% to -7%, so the Eurozone can work and can survive. And this bank is called JP Morgan. I don't know if you know them, but they have the same result than we have. So we are definitely in the endgame of this monetary system in general. And the American central bank, the Fed, they raised the interest rate to 2.5%, but everybody was expecting 2, 3, 4 more hikes. But hey, they already stopped. They said, "Oh, wait, the economy looks weak. We have to wait and we have to see what's going on." And we're only at 2.5%. So they already said at the last meeting, "Hey, okay, we're ready. We can lower the rates if it's necessary," like Trump wishes to get the stock market to 30 and 40,000 to create another bubble, and he can win the election in 2020. So this is what's going to happening, and we will see rate cuts in the US. We will see rate cuts in Europe, and we will see rate cuts all over the world, which we already saw. For example, in Australia, we have the lowest interest rates in history in Australia at 1%. The Chinese National Bank, for example, cut the rates as strong as never before. Even during the financial crisis in 2008, they never cut the rates as much as they did last month with 3.5%. So we see it's happening, and we are unfortunately in the last phase of artificial created boom in the last cycle.
And speaking about Europe, so if all this comes to pass, as you're saying, specifically like for Europeans, I mean, what would people then logically do? Hold less euros, and then how do you protect yourself? As you said, this financial repression that we saw in Cyprus back in 2008, they did bail-ins. So should I? I mean, if I keep my money in the bank, I mean, they're going to take some of my money from the bank. The euro will lose its value. So, I mean, in that instance, what should people do?
Yeah, okay. One thing, you're sitting in Croatia right now, don't you?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, and Croatia wants to join the Euro club. Yeah, so instead of shrinking or bury the euro, they get bigger and bigger. Like every empire before they fail, when nations fail, when empires fail, it's always the same. They expand and then they implode. It's always the same game. So if you're in the Eurozone, if you want to protect your money, if you have wealth in fiat currencies, because the dollar is it's not better. It's just a race between dying currencies. The US government has debt $22 trillion. It's on a historic high level. It's just the end game, and they just can't print money because they have the reserve currency for the world. But as soon as the dollar gets ditched by the Chinese yuan, it will be different. So if you want to protect your money, you have to look for safe havens, and safe havens are out there. You just look in the past what protected money, what protected wealth in the past, and it was always the same. It's, for example, through nature limited real assets like real estate, like land, like precious metals, gold, silver. But also, I'm a big fan of Bitcoin because it's limited by math, and this is a natural law, And so you have to diversify your wealth in different assets. Just don't put all your money in one asset, like, I'll just buy stocks of this and this company because then it's safe. No, you have to diversify. You need different legs for your wealth to stay stable for the future, because the financial storm is coming, and it's coming really hard. My prediction is it will be the biggest crash of all times we will see, not only on the financial markets but also for the society and for politics. And we already see it, and this time we can't stop it. Like 2008, when all the central banks printed money in one action and lowered the interest rates. This time it's not going to work. This time China is not willing and can't be and is not able to bail us out all of the problems. And this time we can't save the banks and everything. This time the volume is just too big, and the countries will fail. We will see bankruptcies, we will see unemployment rates which we have never seen for decades, and we will see the biggest crash of history, definitely, because there has never been more money in the system, more debts, and we've never been more and closer together through globalization, right now. If you see the financial transactions between Germany and France and Philippines and Japan, it's all stick together very closely. And if one domino falls, there will be a big bang.
And you mentioned empire a bit earlier, and some academics they do view. I agree with that view that the EU it's an empire. It's a form of empire, and as well as the U.S. Part of the theme of this podcast is that the U.S. is an empire. I'm an American. I love America. I love the American Republic, but I have a problem with empire, any kind of empire, because they don't usually end up doing good things. But what are your thoughts on the U.S. empire? Because it's the current hyperpower or superpower, and we know we have these historical cycles where these empires rise and then they decline. And then how do you view the U.S. empire and the effect that its actions are having around the world? How interlinked is the financial crisis with its actions, with the petrodollar, and the dynamics between the decline of the U.S. empire and then the rise of the Eurasian players such as China and Russia?
Yes, I always love to look in the past, and if you look back in the past, we had 16 times that superpowers changed, and from the 16 times, it went 12 times there was war included. So I just hope that now with the 17th time there won't be any war, but China will be number one. That's another prediction I will make, and this is not a very bold one because I think we all know it, we all feel it. They have over 1 billion people. They're extremely ambitious. They're extremely hardworking, and they've got so much money, and they have a plan. And they are not as lame as democracies, because they can make a decision and they just make it happen. For example, in Germany, we have an airport in Berlin, a new one. I think we built it now for over 10 years. It should already be finished like 10 years ago or something like that. And instead of the production costs went from, from 500 million to over 8 billion euro, and still there's no plan starting or landing. It's horrible. And China just opened the biggest airport in the world in Beijing, and they did it in 3 years and in their plan. And that's what I see. They're more flexible. They're faster with their decisions. And if they want something to bring their country forward, they will do everything. They even say, hey, there's a city with 400,000 people. We have to remove them because we need their highway or something else, and that's a big advantage, of course. I don't want to live there, but it's an advantage. They're more flexible, they're faster in their decisions and everything. So China will be the new number one, and the next world currency will be, my opinion is, it will be a digital and gold-backed or with real assets-backed digital yuan. Like Libra from Facebook or like Bitcoin. It will be digital. The next monetary system will be digital. And it has to be backed with something, because when this theater, when this fiat money system goes down, people all over the world will never trust an unbacked monetary system and fiat currency. They will never trust it again. There must be something which is backed with, with gold or with diamonds or with real assets. And that's when the Chinese people or when the Chinese government steps in, because they bought gold the last 10 years. They have so much money. They bought real estate. They bought companies all over the world. And for example, we in Europe or all over the world, there are like 15% of all companies are so-called zombie companies, like The Walking Dead, because they just survived because of the cheap money from the central banks in the US, in Europe, but also in Asia, of course, and in China. They all have problems as well. So, but I like the US. I have friends there. I like the culture and everything. But if you, for example, look at the problems in the US, they're horrible. We have, for example, if you look to Seattle, the homeless problem, it's a real problem. Sometimes if I travel through the US, I think I'm in a third world country, with all the electricity and the infrastructure. It's really rotten. It's really old. The West and the East Coast are nice, but in the middle, it's like, oh my God, where I am. Is this Afghanistan or is this Montana or Colorado, And we have an elite in the US, which is sometimes corrupt, and sometimes it's doing something good for the people, and we see a big shift there. And still, I don't know if Trump is a good one or a bad one, but remember Roosevelt, he said when he left office, he said, I have to warn you of this military industrial complex. And we see what Wesley Clark said. Wesley Clark said, hey, I've got this paper from the Pentagon. It's 7 countries in 5 years, and if you look at the list, the next one would be Iran. And you saw the thing with the big oil tankers, with the big oil ships. It's a farce, They came out with proofs, Pompeo came out with proofs that Iran attacked these ships. Hey, we've seen proofs from the US very often, and on the long term they always were wrong. Remember, for example, Saddam Hussein with the weapons of mass destruction. Remember the girl from Kuwait who said, oh, the Iraqian, the soldiers from Iraq came and killed all the babies, and all lies, all fake news. And the most wars start with fake news. And there's another one. They want to create another war because the companies want it. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, they all all make money with it. And wars are always about money. And I hope this time the mainstream media and we're the people not falling for it, not believing it, and say, hey, show us real proof. I don't think that Iran wants to start a war because they know they will lose it. They never started the war the last 100 years. Why should they start right now a war? So to summarize, the US will lose the first place, definitely. China will be the new number one. The US dollar will lose first place. The digital yuan, in my opinion, will be the new number one. And this goes in the next 10 to 15 years. This will happen in the next decade.
Another point, final point in the book that you wrote, I think it was in 2016, that I think is also very important that others haven't mentioned is the need to focus on morals and values. And this includes renewing our focus on the nucleus of society, which is the family. And I think, this is, I think we're seeing attempts to destroy the family and moral values, especially in the Western society. And I'm kind of living between the East and the West. So I'm here in Europe, but then I live in Central Asia. And you see this, even here in Croatia, people still hold to these traditional values, the majority of the people, especially as well as in Kazakhstan. But in the West, we see they're kind of inverting these values. So can you comment on the need as all this crisis comes to a head, the need to think again about, these things?
What really matters in life? Because if you, on the deathbed, you don't think about, oh, I've got so much shares and money and cars and houses and gold or Bitcoin. You think about your memories, you think about your beloved ones, your family, your kids, the first kiss, the first child born, everything, the vacation with friends, and of course this interview. Yeah. And this is what really matters, There's a German saying that you can't take anything with you when you die. You can't take anything with you, not your bicycle, not your beautiful and expensive Rolex, not your Rolls Royce, not your helicopter, nothing. And I think sense of life is definitely to make the world better for your children and for the future. And I think money is not the main goal to get wealthy or something. We all have to think about one thing. We are all one species. But tell me one species who is fighting so hard against each other because of stupid religions, color of skin, opinion, left, right. It's fucking stupid. It's like, ugh. And I think the crash is the solution. You know why? Because I think with the coming crash, with the coming crisis, we all will realize what really matters. That we have to push away all this stupid prejudices and politics and everything else, and we will have to look inside and say, okay, what really matters is we are one species and we have to stick together to create a golden future for all of us. And we have the opportunity with artificial intelligence, with Bitcoin, with computers, with quantum computers and everything. It will happen, but we have to fight the evil powers which are out there who want to own the monopoly of creating money and keeping us busy. It's bread and circuses out there. We have the World Championship of Soccer for women and for men, and then every 2 years another big sport act, and then we have elections, and then we have US Got Talent or Britain Got Talent, and we have newspapers, and so they keep us busy, and we run and have to make money, and it's getting more and more expensive to get your dream. You want to have a house in Croatia or at the beach, and you want to have a nice vacation, a nice car, a nice wife, and everything, but it's getting more and more expensive, and you always run, and you don't have time to read a critical book or listen to this beautiful podcast and create some own ideas and to create critical ideas and get out on the street and say, hey, stop, we don't want it anymore. We want something different. And this is bread and circuses in the end game. And my hope is that with the coming crisis, with the coming crash, that people, that we are that we will change the world for a better future, and that we will realize what's good and what's evil, and that we kick out the bad people and the politicians and all this nonsense and create a golden future for all of us in Africa, in North America, in Asia, and that we all together, how can I say it? That we all together move in one direction and not against each other. That's my big hope, and I think this will definitely happen with the coming crisis, and that it will be our mind will get to another level. That we see what's really important. I think we are right now with our senses are like covered with all this noise, but after that we will be free, and that we have something. It sounds spiritual, but it will happen. That we will see a clear path where we have to go, and that we have to stick together if we want to survive on this planet.
I think that's a great place to leave it. Very optimistic. And I just wanted to mention you have a very popular YouTube channel in German. I'm so sad that I can't understand it, but how can people follow you online as well as any other websites you recommend?
Yeah, we have an English website as well. You can put it in the show notes. It's friedrich-weig.de or .com. You can follow us on Twitter, and on my Twitter account, it's I think you will put it in the show notes as well. I write the Twitters in English and German. Perhaps I start English videos on YouTube now. We were the most successful YouTube channel in Germany for finance and economics. We went from 0 to over 20,000 subscriptions in less than half a year. I'm very grateful and glad about that. But I think the success is because I just tell what I think, and tell the truth and show some facts and prove it, and people realize that something is wrong with the whole system. It's rigged with the politics and the financial system, and people, even if they have no clue about economics, feel that something is different, that we are on a shift or something, that something will happen in the near future with everything, and we see it everywhere in all corners. And you can read my second book, The Crash is the Solution. It's available as an ebook on Amazon. And the next book is coming out end of October. Perhaps there will be an English translation. It's called The Biggest Crash of All Times, of course, because this is the result of my research, and we all will see it. But I think, as bigger the crisis is, the bigger the chance is for change, and we have to see it as a chance to get a better future. And this is an opportunity. We should definitely embrace it and use it.
All right. People go check out Marc Friedrich and Matthias Weig's work. Read The Crash is the Solution in English, and his other books in German if you speak German. Danke very much, Mr. Friedrich.
You're very welcome. Looking forward to talk to you again soon in the future.
I hope you enjoyed this Geopolitics and Empire podcast and interview. I would like to remind you that our website is geopoliticsandempire.com, and you can sign up for our mailing list that goes out each weekend with the latest podcast and a long collection of important news headlines. It's good to sign up for the newsletter in case we experience censorship and deplatforming. You can help the Geopolitics and Empire podcast by subscribing to and interacting with all of our channels such as YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Gab, Minds, and Steemit. You can also help us by leaving a rating and review on your favorite podcast platforms such as iTunes, Castbox, Stitcher, Spreaker, and so on. Finally, if you value our work and our mission and would like to see us continue interviewing experts from across the political spectrum, please consider leaving a one-time donation via PayPal or Bitcoin, or becoming a regular monthly supporter on our Patreon. All the links can be found on geopoliticsandempire.com. Thanks for listening.